In order to explain my take on the Dune story, we're going to have to start with my understanding of Dune, which began with this book, the Dune storybook, which is the storybook of the movie of Dune, and not the most recent movie. It's obviously the David Lynch version. It even says David Lynch's screenplay as opposed to the novel. It's only based on the Frank Herbert book. Now, first of all, when I was a kid, I read this book. I was too young to see the movie, but eventually I did catch the movie on television. And that's important because whenever I was old enough to read the books, I didn't start with the first book in the series because guess what? I already knew the story, I knew how it ended. So, having read the storybook and seen the movie, I skipped the actual novel by Frank Herbert. So, we're going to, first of all, go through my reviews of the movies, not only the original David Lynch movie, but then the sequels, the made for television sequels, because when they came to do the television version, like me, they took the movie and then skipped the story of the original novel, and then went straight to the sequels. So here goes. June 1984. This was the first big Hollywood movie for David Lynch, taken from the novel by Frank Herbert. Since the book was a big inspiration for Star Wars A New Hope, that movie is what this was competing against. Paul Atreides, played by Kyle MacLachlan from Twin Peaks, is a young man with prophetic dreams. His mother, Lady Jessica, played by Francesca Annie, submissive and tested by the Reverend Mother, Cyan Phillips. Although Paul is not what they hoped for, he may have an important destiny. Paul is heir to his father, Duke Leto Atreides, played by Jurgen Prochnow from Judge Dredd, who is gifted the desert planet of Arrakis, also known as Dune, with Paul's best friend Duncan Idaho, played by Richard Jordan from Raise the Titanic, and Leto's military advisor Gurney Halleck, who's Patrick Stewart of Star Trek TNG. The Atreides clan moves to the palace of Dune. Their only job is to oversee collection of spice, a magical substance that mutants need to navigate spaceships. The villain is Baron Harkonnen, played by Kenneth McMillan, orders his nephew Fade, Sting from the Bride, to attack Dune and kill all the Atreides. Paul and his mother hide out with the desert-dwelling Fremen, along with the leader Stilgar, Everett McGill from Twin Peaks, and Chani, Sean Young, Paul's love interest. They then have to plot their revenge. Now, that's a 3-hour movie. I've really cut it short there. But, yeah, it's a weird-looking Star Wars type movie. Now, the new version, June 2021. There's a new adaptation of the source novel made by Denis Villeneuve. However, it is in many ways a scene-for-scene remake. The real revelation is how much the original adaptation must have kept true to the source material in the novel. The good news is that while the David Lynch version flopped because it was in competition with Star Wars, this movie might actually be successful because of the decline of the Star Wars franchise. It might become a decent rival franchise as John Carter was intended to become. Paul Atreides, Timothy Chalamet from Wonka, is a young man with prophetic dreams. His mother, Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, has him tested by the Reverend Mother, Charlotte Rampling. He's heir to Leto Atreides, Oscar Isaac from Star Wars, and let's see, Duncan Idaho is Jason Momoa, Gurney Halleck is Josh Brolin. So you have a DC and a Marvel there, and a Star Wars. So yes, big names from all these franchises. And let's see, Harkonnen is now Stellan Skarsgård. Oh, the Beast Raban, Dave Bautista from Spectre, actually gets to do something where he wasn't really much used in the original. or the previous movie, I should say. Let's see. And the Fremen are now people of color. Javier Bardem and Shani is Zendaya. And when they plot their revenge, there's actually Dune Part 2, which came out a couple of years later. This is Part 2 of the Denis Villeneuve adaptation. Although the story is already covered in the David Lynch version, this one has one major advantage: the visuals. While previous versions of the story were well shot, this time the director really takes advantage of modern CGI and puts everything up on the screen. Paul Atreides and his mother hide out with the desert-dwelling Fremen, along with the leader Stilgar and Chani, Paul's love interest. They carry out a series of attacks on the Harkonnen harvesters, putting the supply of spice at risk. This is all a ploy to involve the Emperor, Christopher Walken. The two-part format of the movies gives the supporting characters a lot more time to develop. While Lynch's version centers the Navigators Guild, this version focuses on the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. Like the Fremen themselves, the galaxy seems to be a matriarchy. The Emperor's daughter, Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh, yet another Marvel, is a key narrator. She is a part of the inner circle when Reverend Mother Mohiam, Charlotte Rampling, sends Lady Margot Fenring, Lea Seydoux, to interrogate Fade Routha, played by Austin Butler. This focus on Fade allows him to be more developed as a character, making him a more threatening antagonist. Likewise, Beast Raban, Dave Bautista, gets a lot of screen time and a subplot as the archenemy of Paul's military advisor, Gurney Halleck. Oh, and they're both Marvels, yes. They're both in Avengers Endgame. The result is a beautifully shot film which, much like Avatar, seems to have left no cultural impact. Although the story ends on a cliffhanger, and the director stated his interest in adapting the next two books in the series, there seems to be no public interest in this. Worse, the movie has altered a key aspect of the books, specifically Chani's relationship with Paul, and thus the basis for the sequel's storyline is undermined. Please remember, by this stage, I had only read the sequels, I had not read the original book. Children of Dune from 2003. This is a TV miniseries, although it seems to have been re-edited for television. The total running time is under 3 hours, split into 3 episodes. It was filmed in the Czech Republic by action director Greg Yatins. It has some blocky CGI and wooden acting. It suffers compared to the production values of the David Lynch movie. However, it stays faithful to the Frank Herbert book. Episode 1, The Messiah. Paul Muad'Dib, Alec Newman, leads a crusade across the galaxy. Unfortunately, his Fremen crusaders want to kill all unbelievers. Stilgar, who's become Stephen Burkhouse from Octopussy, leads the Fremen, while Muad'Dib's mom, Jessica, Alice Krieger, is back on the Atreides homeworld. Princess Wensikia, Susan Sarandon, eldest daughter of the deposed emperor, is an evil plotter. She has made a clone of Paul's dead friend and sends him to him through the Navigator Guild. Other players are mixed into the affair. Episode 2, The Children, aka Children of Dune. The first episode ends when Paul's children are born. The second episode is set 18 years later. Paul's son Leto, James McAvoy from X-Men First Class, and his sister are the main focus of the story. They have been upaged from the original book, which makes it easier for filming purposes, but the characters still act like immature children. Jessica, played by Alice Krieger, now the Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit, visits her family on Arrakis. A mad old blind preacher heckles them. Stilgar, Stephen Burkhoff, is in charge of the security. Princess Wensikia is still plotting her revenge. Yes, she has been waiting 20 years for her evil plan to pay off. It involves even more gifts given to the Atreides. The show is basically an uncompelling drama with nice special effects. While the main cast are relatively big names, supporting actors are small timers, even for a TV miniseries. Most of them never moved on to anything bigger and are completely forgettable in this. Alia, sister of Muad'Dib, is regent, since everyone else has either left or is underage. She is a perfectly good husband, but seeks pleasure with a priest named Javid, played by Rick Young. However, she is being driven insane by her genetic memory of her forebears, personified by her mother's father, Baron Harkonnen, played by Ian McNeice from Doctor Who. Stilgar, Stephen Burkhoff, discovers that a dissident sect of Fremen is plotting to start a civil war. Jessica realizes what is up and tries to save her grandchildren from Alia. Of course, this is all what Princess Wensikia has spent the last 20 years planning for. And finally, Episode 3, Children of Dune. In the third episode, Leto and his twin sister have fallen into the trap. They are chased across the desert by a couple of CGI monsters, saber-toothed tigers cloned specifically to hunt them. Of course, the twins have different storylines to follow. Alia has been terraforming Arrakis in order to kill most of the worms and deliberately endanger the supply of spice to force up the price. In return, some of the rebels have been shipping worms off-world in the hope of breaking the Atreides' monopoly on spice. Princess Wensikia, Susan Sarandon, offers her son as marital consort to Leto's sister in a move that should safeguard all concerned. Jessica even agrees to train the son in Bene Gesserit techniques. The inevitable betrayal comes from an unexpected quarter. In the end, all the plot threads are tied up and the villains punished. However, it is a bit lackluster. While the original story is the classic hero's journey with the rise to power of Muad'Dib, this sequel is about his decline and fall. Not through enormous space battles like in Star Wars, but through plotting and politicking. Whenever I get round to reviewing Dune Drifter, which looks like just a rip-off and not part of the original series, I'll let you know. Planet Dune from 2021. This is not part of the official franchise. Simply a cheap mockbuster from the asylum. Sean Young, one of the stars of the 1984 film, plays the role of a U.S. Space Force Captain Chase. This is set in the next few centuries as opposed to the 50th millennium. The USA and Russia are the two main superpowers engaged in interstellar exploration. Unfortunately, they are engaged in a new Cold War, which is bad news for the protagonist. She is a hotshot rescue pilot who disobeys the direct order to save a Russian cosmonaut. As punishment, the pilot is put in charge of a crew of convicts. Strangely, the convicts are all of above average attractiveness. This means that most of the movie is about three hot chicks running around in skimpy t-shirts. The convict crew go to salvage a freighter that had to land on an exoplanet named Planet Dune. They quickly find themselves besieged by giant CGI worms, hence lots of running around. Since they are convicts, Captain Chase refuses to send a rescue team to help them. Despite this being made by the Asylum, this is not the worst written of their films. The writers have actually made an effort to deal with their plot holes. Unfortunately, the director has neither the imagination of David Lynch nor the visual storytelling flair of Denis Villeneuve. Unfortunately, this seems to owe more to Tremors if it were made as a serious effort rather than as a comedy. And finally, we get to the Frank Herbert book itself. Now, the thing about the book is about as thick as Lord of the Rings. It's a take on the Foundation series insofar as it's twisting the whole idea of these scientists or whatever planning a future ahead through prehistory, as Asimov calls it. Herbert has the villains be the Bene Gesserit, and while some of that comes out in the second Villeneuve movie, he could have made it a trilogy. He could have made it more clear the Emperor's part and everything. Um, and the thing is this, that the David Lynch version has Mapes and has more, shall we say, supporting characters, more of the smaller roles. Um, it's amazing that I think Villeneuve really just chose style over substance. I mean, that's it. It's about the visual flair for him, and he has not only cut out the same things Lynch cut out mostly, um, not so much in the second half, but still. Um, and yet, what's the point of not doing the whole thing? If he had done it as a trilogy, Villeneuve could have put in everything, all the important stuff in the book, and he not only didn't, I think he amalgamated a couple of characters in order to cause Chiani to have her complete lack of faith in Muad'Dib. If it had been more true to the book, then Chiani would have remained loyal to him, and the anti Muad'Dib faction would have been um, shown through other Fremen characters, and that, should we say, lack of diversity, lack of representation in modern terms is really, it really cuts into it, and especially since we're meant to have this third Dune movie, because now it's what is Dune Messiah, and then Children of Dune will also supposedly be adapted. I mean, it's amazing that so many other franchises have died, just been done to death, and yet somehow Dune is still going to get money thrown at it, and Villeneuve is still going to keep going with it. And I honestly, I don't know. I mean, he's flogging a dead horse, really. I mean, he's written himself into a corner. He left out tons of good stuff from the book, and I don't really have high hopes for this movie that is forthcoming, the next in the Dune series. But I'm willing to be proven wrong. So hope for the best, but yeah, plan for the worst. Anyway, um, if you disagree with me, you can always add something in the comments section below, and um, if you if you're interested in hearing my opinion whenever the new Dune movie eventually does come out and I get to review it properly, then like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you very much.